Behind the Hooks. With Manny DeGrandis. And Daniel Panetta. And welcome back to Behind the Hooks.
Yep.
I'm Daniel Panetta.
I'm Manny DeGrandis.
And today we are honored. We are just so unbelievably honored. And you will not believe it. We have a very special guest. He is not only an established writer, composer, seasoned musician, and I consider him to be one of my mentors. We've gigged with him a bunch, and I am very proud to call him a friend. Mr. John Dawson is here with us today. What's going on, John?
Hey guys! Wow, that intro was
This is
made
why
me blush a bit, buddy.
Well, you're beautiful either way, my friend.
I want to record that, and I want to have it going with me everywhere. Before I enter a room,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna play that.
Just can you play this before I walk into the room?
Yeah.
Johnny boy, it has been too long, my friend. How are you?
It
How's the
has.
family? How are the kids? What's going on?
Good, man. We miss you guys. It's been crazy town these last couple of years. We know that, and but you know, I mean, we're doing okay. Everybody's home. We've been home since this thing started.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Nothing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
normal
I know,
anymore,
it's
right?
weird, right?
I don't even know. I don't even know what
There
to
was a
say.
time where you would ask a musician that and they'd be like list off their entire season of what's going on. And now it's just like, man, we're just, we're
We're
alive.
sitting. Sometimes I sit here.
I think
Sometimes I sit
it would
in the
also
room.
be, it would also be us meeting like 4 times a week at, HBH or something. So
Mhm.
there wouldn't be a lot to update, but so
Yeah. But always a great conversation. That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have you here with us, man. I've been picking your brain for the entirety of our friendship, and I'm very proud to call you a friend.
likewise.
We had Steve Piccone on the show recently, and we've had collectively a bunch of great times. You guys were there with me when I did my first single.
Oh.
And I'm forever indebted to you for that. But
That was a great night. I enjoyed
it. Was a great night. It was a lot of fun. It was very warm and very, heartwarming to know. Like, for me, like I get very nervous with stuff like that, but having you guys there made it really comfortable. But
Yeah,
since
you did show up,
the beginning of our friendship, I've always been one of my favorite things to do is to pick your brain, just about everything music. Your knowledge of our industry and the music itself is encyclopedic. I don't know how else to put it other than that. So if anything, today what we'd like to do is really just do that, is just pick your brain about the industry, your views on your side of the industry in composition and in publishing and in getting your songs out there, whether it's for for something specific, or if you're just looking to compose for for a living, you know what I mean. And I think no better person would be a great conversation to have than with you.
Oh, thank you. Love that.
So with that
So-
being said, John, what have you done?
Yeah. What have you
What have I
done?
done? Yeah, no, not much. The interesting thing about my it's a particular type of journey as a composer, because it has been an experience with niche markets, probably like but fairly sizable niche markets. Probably the things I've done that have been larger is I was for years I served on about 10 years I served on something called the National Council for Liturgical Music.
Right.
And as a result of being on this body, I got commissioned to write, when it was decided that there was going to be a new translation of liturgical responses for the country. I was one of 3 composers chosen to set these to music for the country.
Whoa.
So it was a national commission, and it was significant. I mean, it went, I think the numbers from the publisher when it was published, the resource it was put out in sold cumulatively by this point probably over 1 million units. Of course, I'm not seeing that, but that's another part of the conversation.
Yeah, I do want to dive into that. So
Yeah.
is it safe to say then, because you were one of 3 for national liturgical music. Is it safe to say that if you walked into a church or listened to the hymns of the church or the or various songs that they play, that we would hear your music?
It's happened to me dozens of times. I've walked into churches I've never been to and heard my music bouncing off the walls, and it's hilarious. But yes, absolutely. Actually, funny story, because I am a teacher as well, and I had some students, and my music's also in the religion textbook for grades 4 to 8.
Oh, cool.
So it shows up. I had the license for that. So I put it up on the screen, and I said, "You guys know this?" And they all started singing along. And I said, "Do you have any idea who wrote that?" And then I pointed to the name. So they've been singing. I got kids who've been singing my music since they were, in grade 1. It's crazy. It was a really unique experience because my music has been everywhere. And yes, if you've been in, a Catholic church, opinions on that aside, of course, but if you have been, and you've heard music in the last 10 years, there's a very good chance you've heard something I've written. And especially, it's changed in the last few years, but probably when it first came out, in, I guess it'd be 2011, 2012, I was told it was the one that was used the most in Canada.
Wow, dude.
Holy. And it was wild walking in and hearing, and the funny part is, sorry, I'm going to go a bit tangential here, but
That's okay.
I would get emails from composers going, "Can I set your mass for full orchestra?" I received 2 complete orchestrations. Someone wanted to do it for handbell choir, because when I composed it, of course, I basically gave them a lead sheet. A friend of mine did a little SATB arrangement, but I didn't do a massive multi-part arrangement or orchestration. But I was receiving request after request and orchestration after orchestration of people just saying, "Can I do this? Can I do this?" It was amazing to hear these notes I put on a page interpreted by so many people so differently. I've heard children's choirs do it. Like I said, I've heard orchestras, I've heard rock bands do it. I've heard, more kind of different Latin American versions.
Wow.
It's been amazing to have that experience, and nobody knows I'm there. I remember I played one show. It was like a big event, and there's about 5,000 people there, and I was just backing up the singer, and she was using my music for this part of the mass. And it was amazing because we launched into it, and of course I wasn't announced. I'm just a guitar player, which is fine. But again, I just saw 5,000 people singing back at me words, music I'd written, and they had no idea I was there. It was an absolute bizarre experience, to know that you've written music that's had that much of a reach, but to not have it come with that celebrity piece,
That's the interesting part. There's something like, we've talked about this before on the show about legacies mean something very different for us musicians, in a very different way than what legacies would mean to somebody else. So, legacies for a lot of people would be, your children are your legacy, or, your success is your legacy. There's something about just, having a little bit of you in the history books, as in an accomplished way, is a really big legacy point, check mark. You know what I mean?
It's been used at baptisms, weddings, funerals. Like, I've written music that has literally accompanied people's lives.
Yeah.
That's my crazy. Own, actually, the first public performance of it was my own mother's funeral.
Wow.
It wasn't actually allowed to be used, and we got special permission, oddly enough, even though I was the composer, had to go through all this, proper release process. But it was mine, as far as I know, the first public performance was my own mother's funeral. And I've heard time and time and again, people at their weddings, friends from high school. My former vice principal passed away, God rest his soul, and they used my music at his funeral. It's a really, speaking to legacy, it is, and it's a grand total of about 6 minutes of music, which is hilarious.
Wow.
And it's like
people
5
tend
parts.
To forget. People tend to forget.
Played on it. You played on the demos, Manny.
Yeah, I played on the demos.
Yeah, you played on the demos.
That's awesome, man. So yeah,
for free, by the
way. You complain about your release form. Listen, that was fair and square, buddy. You signed.
This guy's always just making me sign stuff when I'm not looking. Puts a pen in my hand.
Might want to check the deed to your house, buddy. Might want to check that.
But
Go ahead.
can we talk about, okay, so let's talk about how it sold that many and how, because a lot of people think, oh, I write a song and it sells millions and I make all the money, right? But you got this gig because it was a gig. It was a working gig. It wasn't, I wrote an album. It was like, so how did it come about? They told you write 6 minutes of music and then.
No, it was all the parts. They outlined. So you mean like even like the specs of the deal or just the specific?
Well, like, I mean, it wasn't you approached them and said, hey, I wrote this piece.
No,
it was more you write a piece. And
they wanted somebody specifically who was a guitar player. And I was on this council and they wanted somebody who had some relationship to contemporary music because they knew that needed to be represented in this resource. So I was there obviously, and they chose me. And there were, a few specific parts we were supposed to write. Now, the best part about this is because it was all coming from Rome. So the texts had to be vetted so that they'd be translated, and then they'd have to go, the translation be done here and have to be sent, and they'd have to prove it in Rome. So when we were given the texts, I got like an envelope that said texts under embargo. And I loved getting something. It was like I got a dossier, and we weren't allowed to talk about it or show anybody the text because they officially hadn't been approved. So we got the texts we were to set with the caveat that they could change. And so we had a timeline of then going about setting, and the music would be brought to the council and it would ultimately be approved. And then when it got approved, it went through all that. And then the paperwork starts.
Gotcha. So in that sense, then, having to go through, going to Rome and getting.
Oh, I didn't go to Rome. No.
Well, no, your papers
yes, I
did.
see. Yeah.
So in all of that, is there the same mindset of like composition elsewhere where you have to catalog and run it through a publishing company or anything like that?
The music itself, to an extent, I mean, most publishers, and this was another one, I did a couple music for a couple guided meditation books recently, and it was a slightly different experience with this publisher. But in every publishing situation, you're going to have some form of the publishing executive committee.
Right.
Some group of people, could be one guy, could be 9 people, but somebody somewhere is going to vet it. And with this particular commission, it was this council. Now, I was on the council, which at first looks like a conflict of interest, but it was not, because these people were merciless. It was not a benefit to be sitting in that room having your music pulled apart by a committee of very, very, accomplished musicians. And not that they pulled a lot of it apart, mind you, but, I had to do rewrites. And there was a bit of like, what, I love this here, but we think you're heading in this direction here. And so there were conversations, there were rewrites. All told, I think I did 2 or 3 drafts before we felt it was where it needed to be.
That's not bad. Dude.
Yeah.
No, it was all right. It was all right.
That's okay. Pretty damn good.
Yeah. A couple of them I got right off the bat. There was just one. It was just one that it was the Gloria. And even now I listen back to it and I'm like, I probably should have changed that. But
that's
you guys know what that's
man.
You guys
that's
know what that's like,
goes.
Right? Like, it's like, yeah, I didn't really like that. And to come to think of it, but I like the piece, but you know what it's like. So yeah, it was around 2 or 3 drafts, and we'd only meet once or twice a year anyway. So it was on the docket for a bunch of our meetings. Then it was done, and then it was off to the publisher.
Crazy, man. Like that.
Yeah, it was wild.
I love. I mean, am I weird for loving that part of it? The steps, the lily pads you have to hop onto in order for this finished product that people just assume magically appears. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
it's a lot of you.
It's torture in the process, but you're so glad it's happened when you've gone through it, right?
Sure.
Like, it's like that because it does make you better. It made me a more effective composer when I listened. I mean, we know this as guys who all went to Humber. I mean, how many times did we have to get, torn to pieces just to, know that we were heading in the right direction?
100%.
And I think that's what that, ideally, that's what that should be. I mean, if it's if it's absolutely way off and missing the mark, that's a whole other conversation. But when you know you're there and there's something to work with, you know, it's cool to hear that stuff, because you're getting different perspectives on your work. And then when you're done, like, you know, like you said, like, you've leapfrogged all your lily pads here all the way along, and then you've got this thing. It's like, wow, you feel more confident when it's done, because you feel like it's already been through.
It's done.
Yeah,
it's
it's
through the
done.
gauntlet. It's done everything it could possibly do to appease anybody that it possibly can, and then finally get to its finished product.
Now listen, when it came out, sorry, I mean, but
go ahead, please.
It was amazing to watch, because it was a very polarizing thing, because in the demos, I purposely used African American and Latin American rhythms to underpin it, because to me that's a very important cultural dynamic in our faith tradition, and people of a very traditional mindset did not appreciate that. And so it was really difficult on blog. I was reading about myself on blogs, and like I was being accused of undermining everything. Like, I was horrible. It was really hard for a little while, and it took me a little while to get that in my head and kind of work through that.
That's so
and
ahead
then when I saw
of its time too, because like, I mean, if you look now, we're incorporating so many different cultures, so many different little inflections in all types of music, that it's become so much of a norm. You were doing this years ago.
Wow. Yeah, thank you. I was
I very
wanted
much
to
ahead of your time.
do that. No, I wanted to do that because for me, it felt like those cultural influences rhythmically. I don't see how. And I don't want to get into the necessarily the dogmatics of it, but I don't understand how you can say something that's only of this particular style represents something that claims to be universal. So for me, when it comes to music, there's a lot there that's beautiful, and beauty doesn't always mean people singing Latin in choirs, you know?
Did you find yourself getting into like a self-compromise where you have the musician side of yourself that's pulling you one direction, and then what you're tasked to do within the liturgical field of music that's pulling you another way? And did you ever have to like make a compromise to meet in the middle, or did one take over in one way or the other?
Yeah, totally. Because the general metric for that particular style of music, and this is why I said niche at the beginning, it's a very unique style of music because it has to be so subservient to the text. It's not like song where they're almost on equal level. You know, word and music come together in a very important symbiotic relationship in songcraft. In this, the music is, it's a supportive element to the text because it's ritual text.
Right.
So anytime, you're in this incredibly difficult balancing act of working in musical elements that you hope are interesting and engaging and people will sing along with, because that's the other thing, is basically I'm trying to write the equivalent of a religious jingle. People need to be able to pick this up and sing along with it immediately, but I have to be able to do that without taking too much, having the music come to the fore over the text too much. It was an incredible balancing act, and one that for the most part I'm confident I did well.
Well, obviously it's still being performed all over the country,
and I hear from people all the time. People sing it. It's you hear people. It's just something people intone it and start singing it. It's just in the air in this tradition now. It's really a wild experience.
That's crazy, amazing.
Yeah,
but all those things, it comes with it's a job, because it was a job. Your commission, it was a job, right? So now you've put out albums. Did you find any of that writing a job
for like my own creative
stuff?
No. As a matter of fact, that's usually when it began to, Manny, and you would know this better than anybody because you're right by my side through a lot of this stuff. The minute it did become or did start feeling like a job was usually the minute I either took a break or went a different direction. It's when it comes to the self-expressive part of me, it's part of the reason I teach is because I'm very protective of that part of me always being something particularly disinterested, if I can use that word.
Sure.
I don't want to monetize it to any if people want to buy it, of course. It's art for me, and I guess for me, when I make my own music, I come from, you know, the mindset of art needs to be made regardless of whether it's going to be making money or whether it's going to be popular. I just need to make my art. So that's my view of that stuff. So I only release and put those things out when I'm passionate about it, which is why I can go years without putting anything out.
And you know what? That's funny, because I fell into that mindset around the same time that you and I started getting closer. And I was, and I'm sure you remember, like, the way I was years ago when, you know, I was getting ready for gigs and, you know, like, you know, being signed and everything like that. It was all about, you know, okay, you know, the marketing, the brand, you're the brand, you know, how do you look, the images, packaging, you know, all this stuff. And then when I started becoming friends with the circle that we ended up becoming, I realized that if I can just get people enjoying this and listening to this music and affecting them in that way, I became the writer's mindset of, as soon as my pen leaves the page, the song's not mine anymore. It's not for me. And in turn, you know, when I release music now, you know, sometimes it's like a year in between singles. You know what I mean? Because it's not so much about getting it perfect as it is fitting. Like it when the arrangement comes together, the skeletal composition of it just kind of like it's like a fluid. It just like seeps out, and the lyrics kind of just, you know, crumble in together with it. It has to happen organically, and I can't force myself to do that. Exactly. And sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes a week. You know what I mean? But like, that was just from the sheer fact of being around musicians like yourself and with Manny, where, you know, it's not so much, it's not even so much how many notes you play, you know, that methodology, the Miles Davis way of thinking. It's not how many notes you play. Sometimes it's just about basking in the silence a little bit and gathering yourself enough to be able to put out something beautiful.
And you know, and it's important for me to say, it's not a judgment call on people who do monetize their music, and I want to be careful when I say that. That's a personal decision I've made, and really it's a pragmatic, or well, maybe a pragmatic, but a practical one, is that I'm horrible at business. Like, I can't do it. If I could do it,
I feel you, man. I feel you.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't do it. I have to spend. It's just not like I have no interest in figuring out social media marketing strategy. I just don't care. Like, I just don't care.
So
I want to make beautiful music. But
it's
I
life
don't care
in golfing, dude. It is life in golfing. Because the
Which
moment
is
you
why I
get
teach.
stuck in that, I get it. The moment you get stuck in that social media marketing of it, and this is one of the reasons why I'm very grateful of the team that I have, where they just said, you know, you focus on the thing that you do, and then we'll handle the stuff that you can.
And that's it, man. That's key.
And there's something beautiful about that. But I mean, I had to do it for a little while. I had to do the social media stuff, and I had to do the self-promotion, self-branding, self-marketing.
And it probably gets easier the more you do it, right?
It does, but it takes a piece of you with it. It takes pieces of you with it. You
it's
know,
on your mind. Like, did I do enough today? I didn't do anything yet today. No. You know, you start laying out your week to your social media outputs, instead of laying out your week to your musical outputs.
I've loved watching, Manny, how much you've grown in that, because it seems I've watched your social media presence grow over the last couple of years, and I've been impressed by that for some time, because you're able to do that. You can spin those plates, and it's a skill, man. That's a talent, you know.
That's one thing. You're right. That's one thing I do have to say about you is you have this way of not making it about the social media post itself. It's more, it is very inspirational how you do it. And it's like, okay, like, I go through this grind to be able to achieve either something tonality that I need to achieve, or even, you know, just licks or a tune. And you broke down the fourth wall of being able to like see what the grind is like. And not a lot of people knew that about you. Even people who played with you didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
So it was really cool how you broke down that fourth wall and allowed people into that part of your life. And I don't think a lot of people have done it better than you. Honest to God, dude. Honestly.
Yeah.
Seriously. So all around, this is a great bunch of people we got here.
Great time. Great talk.
Look at all these great minds that I have sitting in my house. This is so nice. We got a little bit of time left before the break. So what I'd like to do is let's rewind the tape a little bit. You mentioned Humber, and we obviously you're a guitarist and an incredible one at that. Tell us about your musical journey a little bit. Let's reel it back. When did this start for you? When did the itch start to become something that you couldn't ignore anymore?
Well, I guess like a lot of us, there's music somewhere around as a kid. My family's from the East Coast, a lot of Cape Bretoners, so they were Cayleys with my grandpa who played. And then I think I was about 12, and I'd always liked it. I mean, I loved looking at electric guitars, but I was always, it was the kid, right? Like, don't touch that, And then eventually around 12, I don't know. It was that summer I said, I want to play guitar. I got my first guitar that Christmas, not a very expensive one, just a little Consumers Distributing guy. I still have it. But we weren't very flush with cash. We never really had a bunch of money for me to take lessons. So I read guitar magazines voraciously.
Really?
Oh, dude, that was like, I had one friend of my mom's, my mom worked with a lady whose son was a great guitar player. His name was Sean Dennett, and he was quite a mentor for me, but we never officially took lessons. But if I couldn't talk to him, which was most of the time, I was grabbing Guitar for the Practicing Musician, Guitar World, Guitar Player, reading. They'd have these tunes, then they'd have these little analysis, the breakdowns they'd have before the transcriptions. And that's where I would learn these terms. And I come across these terms like, what's a double stop or like anything, and I look at the music and they'd say in bar, such and such, they do this. And I'm like, oh, that must be what that is. Yeah. So I was just kind of doing a lot of that work. And then in high school comes along and you want to get in the band, and, found a few guys the only guys, it was a very small school. So I think the only other 3 musicians in the place at the time were like, and then that's where I met Manny was during those years, the early 90s, man, like the year of the all ages clubs. Right.
We had it good growing up.
It was neat. It was a neat time. The early 90s was a boom for bands, and we played a lot. Like there's always somewhere to play, some all ages place, and then after that, it basically was my journey to Humber. It got into the pre-music program, and then re-auditioned at the end of the year. And Manny and I were both in the we went all our Humber years were together. Yeah, we started in pre-music and went right through together. And that's
insane. That's awesome.
It was really neat. And actually, my favorite is we had beside us, I still remember Manny, in our arranging class taught by Shelley Berger, a friend of ours who was in there, who I don't think either of us talked to in a while, was the lovely and talented Emily Claire Barlow, who was in our arranging class. And I remember Manny trying to throw her off when she was singing Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most once. She smacked him so hard.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
remember that?
If you can have any goal in life, it's to throw off a singer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just. So tell me about like private lesson stuff then. Like, so within the high school part, or was it earlier on that you started getting into like private lessons, learning how to read and stuff like that? That
was all after, all at Humber.
Really?
Any high school was all just
playing,
3 chords and the truth kind of guitar player. It was just rock and roll.
That's amazing, dude. Because I mean, for anybody that's heard Johnny play, you're an improv master. You're a great listener to those around you. Just the sense that you have. It's like this sixth sense that you have when you're playing with Johnny. I'm talking like you're not even here, so just bear with me here. Let me spill my guts here, okay? in the experiences I've had, you're very complimentary to the instruments and just the music that's going on around you, which is obviously I don't think something that can be taught. In the school, all the schooling that we've had, I think we can all agree that yes, a lot of it is like page to ear, ear to instrument, and you know that's pretty much what it is. But you have this way of internalizing the music, and you are such a concerned musician with the quality that you're putting out. I mean, there's been times we've had conversations after gigs and you're saying like, you know, how did you feel with this? It's like, wow, you're the first and probably the only person that I've ever played with, even if I was just doing like a guest spot with you, that you were so concerned with the comfort level of the music itself. There's the like putting the music on a couch, so to speak. You know what I mean? Wow. So that was that's always been a cool experience of mine with you. And like I said, I don't think it's something that can be taught. And it's really interesting to hear that Humber was like the birth of like of the academia of music for you.
I think so. I mean, I think when I was as a young player, you know, in high school, though, you know, I started playing in the late 80s, which was the age of shred. Mm-hmm. And I just intuitively was I wouldn't say repelled by it, but I certainly wasn't drawn to it. So I went looking for the David Gilmours and the Claptons, and there was something in the way I could hear simple lines strung together to form a phrase that just, not that they are mutually exclusive. I'm not going to be that
sure,
obtuse, but in terms of what I needed at that time, I really, really liked the slow hand approach. Maybe it's just because I was too lazy to practice that much. It's entirely possible. It was pure self-preservation. But it was something I think that I gravitated towards intuitively. And when I started adding the academic pieces into it, I think that I've tried to make sure that that's never left me. You know, right. that everything I've added in is always comes from there. And I know it too, and you guys know this, I don't even feel like, but there's times where I've been, you know, going into, because Steve will call me on it, and we've been playing, he'll be the first guy to call me on it. Mm-hmm. If I'm playing and I'm kind of not me, if I'm trying to be something, you know, and I'm not playing authentically, be like, what's wrong with you tonight? You know, and like I'll get that. And I know when I'm off in my headspace and I'm trying to be something I'm not. And I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but there's this
it does.
weird little spot. There's this weird little spot in me that I know is balanced, and I'm there and I'm comfortable. When I play for there, it's great.
Yeah. Well, there is a divide because there is a way of kind of understanding. We got to freeze. There, I totally get what you're saying.
No.
Are you freezing still? You're beautiful.
The video is, yeah.
Okay. Well, I can hear you, and that comforts me.
Yeah.
There is a divide.
That's not me this time.
Can you still hear us though?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So in that case, we'll keep going, and people can just look at how beautiful you are and freeze frame for a couple more minutes. But I do understand what you're talking about. There is a divide in this way of thinking, either or lack thereof, when you're on stage, because there's a difference. When you've lifted something, you can still be authentic. You can still play the lift authentically, but you can also you can play an improv section and not feel authentic. So there is that divide. I totally get what you're saying, because I've heard you lift solos from other people, and I've heard you create solos and these even just like chord melodies that I've heard you put together on the spot, and they've been absolutely beautiful. So I mean, I get when when you're not in the gel mode, you know what I mean, and it becomes obvious to the people that know and love playing with you. Like I totally get it.
Oh yeah, thank you. And it's not even just about
we lose them.
Let's take a break. Let's fix this and come back.
John, if you can hear us, we're gonna call you back because I want to hear with you the rest of this thoughts. Write it down. All right. Yeah, we'll be right back. I don't even know if we're gonna do it on this day, but if we get to it, we get to it. Awesome. We'll be right back. Hey guys, Daniel here from Behind the Hooks. Just wanted to take this time to let you know about Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout is who we use here on our show to distribute our show to all the platforms that we can, Spotify and all that fun stuff. Follow the link in the description and the show notes, and it gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and it helps support our show, which is pretty great. That would be nice. We use it. It's been nothing but great. It's super easy to use. The customer support and the help that I've gotten because I am tech dumb has been nothing but incredible. If you want to upgrade, Buzzsprout has tons of guides to help you find the right equipment at the right place. Just start with some gear, a quiet place, and you can literally upload a podcast from anywhere. You'll get real great looking podcasts because of the website. The website is super sleek and it's really nice. It's nice to have a hub for people to go to if they just want to listen to your show. It's not hard if you have the right partners. The team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. I've experienced this firsthand. We had a previous show that I didn't have access to, and I was worried about it kind of convoluting the market a little bit. So the fact that we can run side by side is absolutely amazing. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Your message is important, and Buzzsprout is here to help you get it out there. We use it, we love it, and we know that you guys will love it too. So, like I said, there's some incentives behind it. Go ahead and check out the link that I'm going to be putting in the description and the show notes. Now, let's get back to the show. On this day in music history. And we're back with Mr. John Dawson.
Unfrozen
And ready. He's thawed.
Yep. It's damn cold where we are. So,
so on this day in music history, 1964, the Beatles made their second live appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show, exactly 1 week after the first. Before an audience of 3,500 people at the Deauville Hotel in Miami Beach, Florida. They performed She Loves You, This Boy, All My Loving. I saw her standing there, From Me to You, and I Want to Hold Your Hand. The greatest hits.
It was like their entire 64 set, wasn't it? Like that was
that was their set.
That's crazy. So obviously not the what is now the Ed Sullivan Theater in New York. So they were in Miami. And John, from our conversations, I know you're a Beatles aficionado. What was special about the 64 Beatles that made them such a phenomenon for that generation of music listeners?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, it seems to me, obviously not having lived through it, but having a lot of firsthand stories from people around us, there was just something in that energy. You had a world coming off of, especially in the US, hot on the heels or in the wake of, pardon the expression, but the assassination of Kennedy. It was a dark time, and I think the Beatles just seemed to represent this, I don't know, just something bright and wonderful that maybe just at that time, right then, seemed to be what people wanted. I asked one of my cousins who watched it, I said, it must have been like hearing aliens from another planet, because we take for granted what it was like to hear those four guys belt those tunes out. Lennon's voice is ubiquitous to us now, but can you imagine never hearing that before?
Yeah.
Like it would have been such a different sound,
Yeah. I heard once, it's I don't know, to me it feels like an oversimplification of the Beatles and what made them tick with their audience. But I heard once that the Rolling Stones were a rock band playing pop songs. The Beatles were a pop band playing rock songs.
Mm.
Does that ring true at all?
I think that's like with both of those bands, that's probably an oversimplification, but I think there's some truth to that for sure. Manny and I both have a pretty close link to the Fab Four, because we did that gig with Jackie Lomax. Remember?
Yep.
One of the first guys signed to Apple Records.
Right. Wow.
And that was, so it's kind of cool to feel like,
your 6 degrees of separation have sunken.
Shrunk by
That's pretty cool, man. No, I think for me, I mean, I remember my first performance ever was singing Help in front of, I don't know, 250 people at the Mandarin.
Did you do the original key?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes, I did. I was
young enough then.
4 or 5.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but like I remember, watching that movie as well, and how much it impacted me, and it just understanding how, just how special it was for that time. I realized that at an early age, only because I guess I felt the same way, because I hadn't experienced much else other than the Elvis and, listening to what my parents were listening to and stuff like that. This is the first time where actually, I sought it out, like I went for something, and I wanted to learn Beatles songs too. And, this was around my Elvis era as well, where it's like, I was listening to all that stuff. And of course, I know you are a Buddy Holly fan as well.
Oh yeah. Huge.
And, there was something about the music of that time, and obviously Buddy Holly taken way too soon. We're talking 59 he passed away, didn't he? Right?
Yeah, was he 22 or something?
Yeah, and and I think predating the Beatles with Buddy Holly even himself it had that same, it gave that same feeling of
he freaks me out, man. Like the songs those songs are. That's crazy. Like he freaks me out. Yeah, I love it. No, it freaks me out. Like, wow, what a body of work in so short a time.
If you think of mainstream music of that time, you're talking 3-chord wonders that were coming out in the rock and roll era.
Those melodies.
You had people that were seeping from the standards era and the cool jazz era and stuff like that. But there was something unique about Buddy and about the Beatles and musicians of that time that were performing their own songs. That it was really unique.
I think Buddy was also the first guy to play a Strat on national television.
Oh,
wow!
I'm pretty sure it was 57 Strat, and Strat was only a couple years old at that time. But I'm pretty sure Buddy was the first guy to play a Strat on television.
Amazing, man. Like
that wasn't this day, but that's music history, right?
Yeah, I if you think about that, we have some listeners that aren't necessarily musicians. They like the music talk, and they like to know what's going on behind the scenes. What does that mean for those that don't understand the importance of being, either the first or one of the first people to play a Strat on live television? What does that mean for pop culture for a guitarist?
Well, at the time it would have meant nothing, but looking at what the history, what the Strat has become, the iconography of that, as one of that and the Les Paul are probably two of the most, when you think of an electric guitar, it's probably one of those two shapes. So the fact that he holds that unique place in the history of the instrument is just really cool that it was him,
Yeah, man.
I think.
And going back to the Beatles, their evolution was so rapid, throughout their very short career as the Beatles, if you think about it. Yeah. How did the Beatles play such a huge part in how we listen to music? And I know that is a very loaded question,
Yeah.
but not how we internalize music. I mean, I know they obviously grew with what was going on in the world and what was going on with music in itself, but there was something uniquely theirs that they held the patent on, you know what I mean? That allowed their listeners to not only be able to grow with them from the 60s and into the late 60s and early 70s, but what do you think?
When I was studying composition with David Mott at York University, he talked about musical style, but from a very interesting perspective. He said, you can break musical style generally into 4 quadrants. You have sentimental and emotional music. You have visceral and physical music. You have spiritual and transcendental music, and you have intellectual and cerebral music. You take those 4 quadrants and you think of, okay, music of Schoenberg, intellectual, cerebral. Right. And no one style of music fits exclusively in the other. But if you take that as a pretty good paradigm, that body, mind, soul, spirit of idea of music, the Beatles were operating with all 4 of those in varying degrees at high levels of ability. And George Martin handling much of the intellectual side. You could move from this visceral, this sentimental, this almost transcendental when you get into some of the explorations in their middle periods. And I think part of what makes them work is that they were a perfect storm of everything we value about music and everything we want from music delivered in a ferocious package that included reinventing the entire experience of music. They basically created the modern touring system. Right. The industry that we grew up in didn't exist before them. Yeah. So that's always my take, and that they just had it all. They really did have it all. In a way that no other band has.
Are you of the on the team they parted ways at the right time?
I don't think I've ever thought about that.
That's interesting because they did their solo albums that came out after. There was gems, right? So if they did,
for sure, all across the board,
right? So if you took the best of those and put it in an album, they still had it in them.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm thinking as the Beatles.
I don't know how they would have weathered the 70s.
Yeah,
I don't really know.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's
I don't know that they would have managed that well, especially with no Brian Epstein.
Yeah.
Right.
Brian, after watching the new documentary, I was like,
after watching Let It Be,
I didn't realize how broken up they were.
No, that one's a weird one because I don't think
that was their dad, right? Like they said.
Yeah.
Like,
so I think the 70s would have been rough on him.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, and I was 5, as was Manny, when Lennon was shot.
Mm-hmm.
So the 80s, obviously, we don't know, but I actually imagine they would have probably found their legs again in the 80s and 90s. And I know this is not everybody is a fan of these, but I like Freeze a Bird and Real Love. I always have. Yeah. I feel like they're these really nice epilogues to their story. And I could have seen them putting out records like that, but I don't think they would have stayed together the way the Stones did. I feel like they would have at some point been like, this is too much. I'm just going to go to Studio 54 for a while and, be a weirdo.
Yeah. It's interesting thinking about it in a decade or era wise, like you're right. 70s was a very strange time in music. It was even though it was experimental, it was washed through a lot of, there was a lot of merging happening in music with disco and country. Disco itself was a merge of different styles of music.
Beatles disco is something we didn't need.
Yeah. There is that one mega mix, the disco mega mix.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. But imagine them writing an original disco oh no, man. I don't know.
You're right.
I don't know. You hear the Bee Gees? Maybe they could have. I don't know. Maybe.
But that's the thing. I mean, if you we talked about the Bee Gees a little bit, I think at the beginning of the season here, where if you listen to the early Bee Gees, the days of Massachusetts, and when they were starting out doing trio stuff that was very much on the folk side of things before they went into their disco ways and pop music, and then of course with writing for movies and soundtrack writing and all that stuff. But it was an interesting thing where I think of like, what if Simon and Garfunkel stuck it through and like, had to maintain and do what the Bee Gees did.
Yeah. We would have lost a lot of great Paul Simon music. Yeah. That is not worth the trade-off.
It is not. You're absolutely right. And of course, yes, we've had a lot of conversations. We actually listened to his record. We came to your house. I remember.
With the
we did
latest
a writing
one that came out.
session. We did a little bit of a writing session, but it was mostly a listening session, and we just listened to his entire record
and we were very quiet for a while afterwards.
Yeah, you remember that? We
Which
were
album-
just
which
very
album
well.
was that? Would have been.
Yeah, In Blue Light.
Okay.
It was the one that he put out just before his last tour. Yeah, I got picked it up on vinyl, and Danny and Steve came over, and we put it on. It was an experience. It was a moment. Yeah, it was something.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. I think that was the last time I really sat down, and it was really nice listening.
It's vinyl.
Yeah, well, listening to it with people who respect music in a almost like law-abiding way. And I hope that doesn't.
So there was a reverence for that whole listening experience. And I think I might have even saved it. I don't know. Maybe I listened to it once before you guys came over. But I was really excited to share it with you guys in particular, because I'm like, you guys are gonna get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was, and that
was something. I got goosebumps thinking about it because that was such a cool
awesome
night. That was
his
really
version of Renee and Georgette Magritte with their dog after work, which is it's my all-time favorite Paul Simon tune. When he does it with that string, the string ensemble. Yeah,
there's been very few times where I've been choked up by music, only because of what, and I talked to Manny about this too. It's like, I don't listen to music much anymore, or at least, I won't for, I'm taking a break from that side of my musicianship, not because of I'm upset with how music is going or anything like that. In fact, I do think there are some great music and artists that are coming out, and are trying to rein in the music, the music production stylings and composition in that way. I'm taking a break from music so I can find what I'm looking for as a composer without being influenced in that way. Cool. and just honing in on what I know right now, and then laying it out like almost like a buffet, and being able to take the things that I want. And then, obviously I will listen to music in that way again.
Well, do you find as a writer and that you got to empty the well and then fill it up again? It's like, I got 100%. A lot of stuff, and then I got to get through all this and work something. It's going to lead, maybe it's one piece, maybe it's an album. I don't know. And then you're like, okay, now I'm going to refill, and now I'm going to go listen to, Crowded House record or something.
100%. I can't express the utter disappointment I feel in myself when I need that emptying of the well, because I can't function as a person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like my neurotypical way of life, like day-to-day stuff becomes torture when the creative side of me is like being bound by the limitations of the day. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to explain and put into words, but it feels like there's a constant white noise in your brain, and everything is just so unnecessary and doesn't matter as much. And then when you finally get it out, and it's now audible, or even visual, if you're writing it down on sheet, and you're looking down or you're listening, and it's like, okay, that's what I needed. It is the most like therapeutic thing that I can do, other than going to therapy, which I probably should go and do if I'm speaking this way. But it makes sense. Yeah. But I have autism as well, right? So, being autistic and being a musician, there's a bleed that does tend to happen. And I know, in you with being a teacher, probably understand, and teaching kids who are on the spectrum, sometimes it's like, having an outlet. I'm very grateful, because I wouldn't be as social, or I wouldn't have picked up the social abilities that I have without being a musician. You know, I would never be able to have a podcast or look
No.
people in the eye or be outgoing without having that commonality of, you know, oh, we're passionate about something, you know, like, and it happens to be the same thing, which is very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I, the way I look at music, and I don't want to make this all about me. I will go back to you because I enjoy talking about you more than I enjoy talking about me. But the way I look at music is the same way, in almost polar opposite, that I look at the world. The world scares me because I don't know. That an unknown thing is terrifying. Now, I don't know everything about music either. That's one of the things I love about music, is it's ever changing.
Yeah, who does?
You're ever learning.
Yeah.
You know, it's an ever learned thing. And but there's something comforting in that, because I'm not afraid to experiment in the learning process of music. I'm terrified in the learning process of sociability and and being human.
Well, it's but it then, I mean, you've put the pieces together right there, because music becomes your rehearsal for life.
Right.
And that's amazing. You know, for me, I found I've had to adjust my process a little bit, that I'm trying to engage my craft every day, especially when I don't have to. Okay. If that makes any sense. It's like, okay, I'm a teacher, so things get busy. It's very easy for me to just be like, you know, I'll write later. And that happens, certainly. I love video games, and that's going to take some time. But, you know, just to dig in and touch base with it, I find a regulating, you know, feature there, like an experience there, when I'm just taking a few minutes writing 8 bars, or just, you know, ripping off some, and it's always the writing. Practicing, sure, I'll work on something. I might, you know, I always go back and revisit just working like on 2/5s or working through a fate book. Just the stuff we've done for years, that basic training. I'm always paying attention to that. But as a writer, I gotta get something out, and I'm trying to do it as a little bit all the time. And I'm starting to find that's a neat way, as I've gotten older, to not put too much pressure on myself as a writer to write the thing. Because the one thing I've noticed is that, and I don't know if you noticed this, Danny, but it's like when you sit down, if you haven't done it in a while, even though there's that well emptying thing, sometimes that moment of sitting down to write, it's like when you start getting into it, you feel like this has got to be it. This has got to be the thing.
Yeah,
you know,
it's almost
that's
like
a lot of pressure.
It is,
you know?
And you know, I'm in the same boat as you, where I don't strive to write the thing in that moment. If it happens, that's a beautiful thing. That's what music should be. It's a harmonious relationship between.
But half the time, it's half a thing. It's a quarter of a thing. You know, it's 2 seconds of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, even those, and I'm finding that now as well in my journey as a composer. And I have not been, I haven't been able to call myself a composer until relatively recently. Because even in my compositions, there was still a lot of things I was figuring out about my knowledge of harmony and things like that. I was figuring it out as I was writing a lot of the time, because, you know, this arch isn't quite what I want it to be. I want to flatten this line and have it peak up, you know, later on. You know, I'm thinking music in a lot of shapes lately. And you're a singer, man. Writers who are singers, that's so huge. Like it's rough, because and you, Manny and I have spoken about this too, because it's like, okay, as a singer, do I want to throw in everything in this one song as if it's my swan song? And then realizing I don't have to. Was a huge thing for me, and was actually the birth of me taking a break from listening to music, because it's like, I need to stop equating my writing style to, you know, accommodate, you know, my wanting to get everything out. Sometimes the beauty lies in that reserve,
the restraint, for sure.
So I've been definitely experimenting with that, and I do have a song coming out that definitely. I know. I've been watching your promo. I like the artwork. Who did that? I did.
Yeah,
that's great, man.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
an artiste.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Very cool.
I'm okay with calling myself a composer. Calling myself an artist, I'm still in it. Okay. I know we were gonna get into like a bunch of on this day stuff, and I might in a little bit, but I do want to hear, speaking of plugs, and immediately after this, actually, you do have something very interesting. So please, can you tell us and our beautiful I will find a nickname for our listeners, but tell us what's going on with you right now, man. Let's bring it to the now.
Well, what's going on with me? Well, okay, so I do, and this is, I don't know if people are gonna love me or hate me for this, but I am a bit of a wrestling fan, and
yes, you are.
I have been my whole life. I'm a bit of a man child, and this is one of the ways that manifests. And I'm on I'm part of a radio show on 960 AM every Saturday and Sunday. It's called Ringside Heat, so I'm one of the regulars on that show. I composed the theme song as well, and that was fun. Channeling my 90s wrestling themes.
Attaboy.
He sends because he got me to play bass on it, and he's just like so pumped. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna have no idea. Like, I have no idea what I'm gonna send you." He sends it to me. I'm like, "This isn't you." It's hilarious.
Yeah. I laugh.
And then I threw me off. I'm like, "What do I play on this?"
Yeah. Oh, dude, I was giggling through that whole recording process.
I can see it.
I'm just like, yeah, it was great.
Okay, no, that's awesome. So that's
that,
every Saturday on 9.
Saturday at 9 and Sunday at 7, I believe. And I've got some music coming out. I'm going to launch a new website shortly, johndawsonmusic.net. But my Twitter is @JohnDawsonMusic. All of this will be out on there, but I've got a small little instrumental record I've been working on, actually largely thanks to Steve Piccone, who got us working on this wonderful Helix stuff there. I've been experimenting with a Helix, so I have a little instrumental project, part of two. This is gonna be a short one. That's just me and my guitar doing some very quiet music, but I'm quite proud of it. So that'll all be mentioned on Twitter @JohnDawsonMusic. But that's the big stuff. There's always hopes of new things down the road, and maybe doing some collaboration with some dude who has a podcast that I might be talking to right now.
Well, you know what? I mean, my door is always open, my brother. I'm excited for what you have coming in, especially in the near and present. But I look forward more than anything to sitting in a room with you, whether people are watching or not, and just and playing music with you again. That is something that I don't and you probably get this too. You play with so many people, and I'm surprised Manny remembers names at this point, because the amount of people that he plays with all the time. But you get those.
But he does. That's the amazing thing.
That is the amazing thing, and you get certain people that you play with that. Some people call it gelling. Some people call it vibing. But you remember not only the hangs, but the sensation of playing. It's so potent, and like you can't shake it, and you try to replicate it with either other musicians, but there's something about a specific ensemble that tends to happen that is really special. And Johnny, you are one of those people for me, my friend. Like there's something really special about playing with you.
Thank you.
I learn every single time, and I'm craving a lesson, my friend.
Well, listen, likewise, Manny and I were talking about you last night. I think we're both huge fans, and we love every chance we've had to support you. So I'm looking forward to the three of us doing it again soon.
Let's do it. Maybe we'll do one of our in-house. What we're planning on doing. Hi, people. Since we've moved to the studio, what Manny and I are really excited about is we're going to be doing some in-session jams at the tail end of our podcasts. And we basically play out the show with either with our guest or just Manny and I, and depending on who's here, and we'll just we'll play some tunes and show people what we were, maybe incorporate what we were talking about into what we end up playing, which would be really cool. And I'd be so honored to have you in house for that, my friend.
Say the word, man. Count me
all right.
in. Yeah.
We're doing it.
We're gonna do it. We said it. We have to do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Done.
Gotta do it. Well, John, it's been a slice, brother, and
thanks,
please
guys.
give my best to the wife and kids.
Yes.
Give and I'm excited for you. Yes, please follow John on Twitter at John Dawson Music, and look out for his website that will be coming out, and listen to him on Saturday and Sundays doing some wicked awesome wrestling music. All right,
Ringside Heat, Saga 960, 9 o'clock Saturdays. Tune in. I'm telling you, on Spotify, podcasts afterwards too. So
I'm gonna, because there's nothing like watching John watching wrestling is a sight to see.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
All right, so that's about it. I'm Daniel Panetta.
I'm Manny DeGrandis.
And that's John Dawson. And we will see you next week. And I don't know what we're doing, so you'll be just as surprised as I am. All right, peace.
Bye.
Behind the Hooks with Manny DeGrandis.